God decides the 24th of March, 2025. Why would his parents be in hellfire while you yourself continue to ask for your parents to be spared the disgrace of the fire in the hereafter? How could that be relevant? How could it not be relevant? You're speaking about the person who propagated the religion that we have today, the one true religion in the world. And you're saying what? That his parents would be in hellfire because they did not live to see his prophethood? A shout here and a shout there. The two people continue to debate an old topic that had been discussed and contested by many scholars over the centuries. The first man said, "I don't see your point." The other man said, his parents would be judged based upon their deeds and how faithful they had been throughout their lives. They do not have to witness his prophethood and become a follower of the faith he comes with in order to be among the people saved from hellfire. The first man replied, but he said in Holy Hadith that his parents would be in hellfire, along with one of his companion's partners. He clearly said, "Your father is in hellfire and my father is in hellfire." The second man responded, he might have said it to correct a false belief that the man who asked had. It does not mean that his parents would be in hellfire. If they were righteous in their life and didn't commit any foul deeds, then why would they be thrown in hellfire? It makes no sense. The first man replied, "We need to look at this in the literal sense." The other replied, "No, we need to look at it from the perspective of belief and morality. If his father was saved after 100 camels were sacrificed to fulfill the vow his grandfather made, then do you think that the person who was ransomed by 100 camels would be thrown in hell?" The first man said, "On what basis do you judge that situation?" The second man said, "On the basis that God would not have let the grandfather sacrifice his son, the prophet's father, to repeat what happened in Israel when people started sacrificing their children to idols. At that, the whole situation was made a sign and a lesson. The child would not have to be sacrificed because God showed his mercy on the whole family." The first man replied, "And that does not mean that they would be saved from hellfire. The hadith says he would be in hell." The second man responded, "God would not save him to cause him to go to hell in the end. God saved Ismail, from a similar situation, but we never get a hint that he would be in hellfire. Why would the prophet's father be in hell?" The first man said, "There was polytheism in the land." The second man answered, "Belief is not in the act, it is in the heart. What if the family specifically did not believe in idols and idol worship? Why would the father be called Abdullah, the servant of Allah, if the family or the grandfather was a worshipper of an idol?" The first man said, "The practices of the pre-Islamic era were all polytheistic." The second man replied, "They were practices devoid of religious and spiritual significance. Some people would do it only because other people are doing it. Some chiefs of Mecca would be compelled to follow the rituals done by the other chiefs. However, that does not mean that their heart was with any of it. Belief is in the heart, and that is what God would judge people on." The first man replied, "But the Prophet said that his father would be in hell. Why are you avoiding that point?" The second man replied, "I'm not avoiding that point, but even the Prophet himself would not know what was in his father's heart." The first man said, "That's true." The second man said, This means that he would not know whether he was a believer or a disbeliever. If he was compelled to do social practices that are seen by God as vain, then he was compelled to do them, unlike other people who do them because they believe these rituals have some significance in their spiritual life. Polytheists worship idols because they believe in idols and because they believe in other deities alongside God, or because they think worshipping them would draw them closer to God. The first man responded, I know what polytheism is. The second man responded, then on what basis do you think that the person whose name upon birth was Abdullah, the servant of Allah, would be thrown in hell, bearing in mind that the majority of the people would not be considered in any way servants of Allah? The first man responded, on the basis of the hadith mentioning that he will be in hell. The Prophet never lies. The second man said, that's true, the Prophet never lies. The second man then stood up and said, maybe your parents would also go to hell. The first man replied, why? I always ask that God may forgive them. The other man said, well, why are you given that privilege when the Prophet was not? The first man said, isn't there a hadith that states that God forbade the Prophet from seeking forgiveness for his father? The other man replied again with another hadith, maybe you should be the one to ask forgiveness for the father of the Prophet. Maybe that's the moral of the hadith, not that his father is in hellfire. Maybe the moral is that even the Prophet is not 100% sure that his father is in hell because God had not yet judged people. Unless God brings judgment on people, who is to say that any person is going to heaven or to hell? People do not know whether they would be going to heaven because that would make life easier for them, doing whatever they desire and knowing that they would be in heaven nevertheless. Similarly, we would not be sure that someone is in hellfire unless they have clearly left an evil heritage, or if they left a dent in society that society would continue to hate them for, even after their death. The second man concluded, if a person is righteous and has lived their life in righteousness, ethics and morality towards others, then they should not be thrown in hell. Even in some disbelievers you would find some good. The Prophet's father and mother were not recorded to have done anything wrong against anyone. Far be it that God would throw them in hell after they contributed even as little as giving birth to the Prophet who is to become the final messenger of God. The first man said, I see what you are saying. There is a prayer asking God to send His peace and blessings on the Prophet and his family, which reads, Blessed is the womb that carried you and the wombs of women before you. Blessed are the backs that carried you throughout the generations of forefathers. Blessed are you, O beloved of Allah. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. سبحان من كل شيء عنده بمقدار. سبحان الله. سبحان من كل شيء عنده بمقدار. سبحان الله. سبحان من كل شيء عنده بمقدار. سبحان الله. سبحان من كل شيء عنده بمقدار. سبحان الله.